Hello and welcome back to Yellow Turbans Abridged. Last time we got some revenge in our war against the Duchy of Wu. We killed Sun Jian and ousted his forces. We also defeated two enemy armies in defensive battles, one from Rong and one from Shi Hui in the north and south respectively, and now it's time to capitalise and try to bring both of those wars to a conclusion. We're starting right here with Gong attacking one of Rong's armies in their territory. We've got some deja vu going on here. This battle's really similar to another battle we also fought on pretty much the same map against pretty much the same army, and I'm using pretty much the same strategy. The only difference to the usual is that the enemy put crossbows on their little hook formation that they like to do, so I had to move my horse archers around to attack a different part of the line instead, which was annoying in that it took a while. Eventually we rout some cav, kill a few guys, and as usual the enemy get aggroed and bring their army over to attack me so I can have the pleasure of being the defender, which is specifically not really having to play the game quite so much, because fire at will do a lot of the work for me. Our yellow turban archers will just annihilate the enemy as they come in. It is a night battle, so we don't have to kill very many to get rid of them, especially among the militia. They do have the range advantage technically in that their crossbows are killing my archers, but they haven't held back and just used them to kill me, so we can charge forwards and kill the rest of their army, and we'll get to the crossbows soon. So here we go, we just start slashing through their infantry. The enemy do have some good infantry there, but it doesn't matter so much in a night battle, especially because we have cav on our side. We saw that we've lost tons of archers so far to the enemy's crossbows. If only they had waited, it could have been all of them. But yes, now Gong and Jiang Kai are attacking on the flanks in precisely the same manner as we saw in the battle that was on this map in the past, basically. And quite soon it all devolves into chaos, and we gradually rout the enemy unit by unit. Here was an interesting turn up for the books. Looks like I've ordered my horse archers to charge the enemy spearmen. They do visibly brace and receive the charge. Wasn't quite as bad as I thought that would be, but we did lose a load of guys and we'll lose that fight as a result, or we would have lost it if the battle wasn't soon won by the fact that the rest of the enemy army is in trouble. Not sure why I was charging those spearmen, but I guess I didn't realise those guys didn't have any ammo and just gave them a double click order, which makes them attack in melee once they're out of ammo. Anyway, the battle comes to an end. It's a close victory for our forces. Everything else was just annihilated here and there. It's another case of the close victory not being particularly close. We killed like 3,000 enemies. And while we did take some losses, in particular on that one horse archer unit there, which nearly died, it's not going to be a big deal. We can occupy the territory, and Gong at this stage in the campaign has something like 50% replenishment, stacking all the various buffs we've got. So we really can just instantly get our army back in like one turn. It's all good. Plus, some good strategic news, we're starting to reach the top of the map, so we're nearly there. Down south against Shi Hui, I don't want to attack this nearby settlement right away because the troops I have aren't very good and they're bothering to defend it, so we are going to do an ambush strategy instead. The terrain means they pretty much have to walk past this ambush to attack me, so we've got a fairly good chance of achieving something there. Although here we are in the next turn and nothing has happened so far. One thing we can do instead is take another piece of Wu Wei with one of the armies I had up north. This is a case where, although it's a Pyrrhic victory, we can just take it, get the win, get the territory, and get our men back afterwards, so no point fighting that whatsoever. There we have it. Wu Wei is now all under our control. It's just the city at Shuofang in the northeast that we need to get, and then we will have the whole north. There's lots of impassable terrain just east of here, so this is an especially defensible position once it's all secured. Looks like Shuofang has nothing defending it, so Gong will get it eventually, although Rong still has an army in the west of Wu Wei near the town. Previously, you might remember, I already built some garrison stuff, so it would be hard for them to take it, and I'm throwing a general in there to make it even harder, plus reinforcements are on the way, so we've kind of got the situation under control. Now Shi Hui, or Shi Hui's men I should say, walk past our ambush as I had hoped, and we get the fight we need. We only have a small advantage, Pyrrhic victory on the balance bar, and this time we do want to fight it because it's going to be much better in reality, and we're going to fight another battle after this to go and try to take the territory. As usual, the ambush is just an absolute mess. What I do, in case you were wondering, is just pause the battle as soon as it starts and then give all of my orders and unpause it so that the battle effectively begins with your men making their attack. That way you roughly guarantee that you're actually going to hit the targets you want to. It's probably the only case where I do use pausing, because you can do it in any battle to make it easier and use slow motion, but I try not to because I feel like it's more immersive and fun to try and do everything real time and just keep everything under control, which is why I usually don't keep things under control. So yes, as you can see, up and down the enemy column, we're just fighting as best we can. One particularly interesting thing that happened was right here. Some enemy crossbows were shooting at my archers, and I thought I had this situation pinned down because my swordsmen were rear attacking the crossbows, but they're just completely ignoring me. This is a too mad to be rear attacked situation, so they're still firing and still killing my archers, and I just can't stop this happening because my swords aren't interesting enough to them or whatever. So that's a shame. But my archers are gradually annihilating tons of enemy units with their backs turned to me, and as you might expect, every win makes the rest of the fight easier and gradually we destroy everything. There was a bit of lag at the end because the enemy officer went into berserk mode and wouldn't rout for a while, but eventually she realises how much trouble their army's in, and that's going to be the end of that. A decisive victory, so you know it was a good one this time. After this, the enemy army's pretty much trashed. We destroyed most of them, although the survivors will have to be auto-resolved away next time. We did capture one enemy officer in this battle, however that officer is actually quite bad, meaning instead of just executing them like I usually might, there's some advantage potentially to letting them go, because a disloyal, weak general is the sort of thing you want the enemy to have. Not that we're playing this to a level of depth that even matters, but in principle, I think that was a good idea. Anyway, as usual, we just kill everyone immediately afterwards anyway, so it doesn't matter. And after that, we can indeed go on to attack the nearby town. There was actually an enemy reinforcement army on the way by the looks of things, but it's not quite close enough, so we can overcome the garrison here and move on in before those reinforcements arrive. All good stuff. Now right after this, you'll see me looking at my income and noting that recently I seem to have been getting less and less money. My income is going down the more places I conquer, and any Total War veteran will immediately realise why this is. There is a hidden corruption mechanic. I say hidden, it's almost hidden. You can't see it at the surface level, but basically every time you capture a territory, your total income is reduced by a percentage amount to represent corruption, quote unquote. And at this stage in the campaign, it's gotten to the point where it's around 60% of my income going away. I didn't know this because I didn't know how to look up corruption. I did eventually find it somewhere buried in a menu. But what this means is that when I capture territories now, I'm actually going to become less wealthy. This is the way of making the game not too easy once you become the #1 faction. But it's also really annoying. It makes the game less fun for sure. Although I am going to do some things to reduce corruption later on to try and counter that. Anyway, enough of the rant. We do need to resolve the fact that we're losing money every turn, and we're going to do this via diplomacy. First I take some money from the Han Empire and get a trade deal in exchange for peace, so the trade deal increases our income. And I do the same thing with someone called Lady Biang Shangyue, no idea who that is, some descendant of someone else we used to be at war with who we don't even have vision of on the map. So now we're trading with someone or other, and we are making money. All very good. Here was a little interesting tidbit I discovered. I was poking around this screen and realised that Gong has the pacifist trait. Never looked at his traits. Looks like I've been role-playing him extremely poorly in this campaign. He never even wanted this war. Maybe he had a plan to peacefully revolt. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Rong makes this outrageous demand of us. That army up in Wu Wei lays siege to the town and then demands surrender. I say, no thank you. And now Rong is screwed. I had already moved over my reinforcements to be within range, so the enemy army is just absolutely annihilated in the auto-resolve. Nice bluff from them though. Also at about the same time, Gong goes in to auto-resolve that city in Shuofang. And now Rong has been expunged from the north and our territory is looking much better. To the north and east of that city, it's all impassable. That's not part of the map. So we can move our forces south and have a much shorter border now. This is truly a glorious day for Gong. The strategic situation is finally improving. Although that said, you can also see on the map we're at war all over the place. I missed it, I guess, in the editing, but Yuan Shu declared war on us again at some point over the last few turns, so we are at war all over the place. We'll need to start moving men to sort that out. First, I'll get peace with Rong, since he still has territory on the other side of the map, and we're probably not going to bother dealing with him anymore, so we peace out and get some money for it. And yes, now we just need to start organising our defence of the middle of our territory, and one thing I really want to do is end the war with the Duchy of Wu. We've had a few defeats and a few victories, and by the looks of things, Sun Ce is not interested in ending the war. So we are going to have to make some pretty big concessions to get away with this. The concessions that he suggests are too much to bear. I have to give him territory and tons of money and food and stuff. So I start renegotiating. I put more focus on giving him our random knickknacks, because we've got an unlimited supply of ancillaries, basically all sorts of random drops that the enemies we've executed have given us, and they are worth quite a lot. So by using them I can avoid giving up any land in the peace deal, but I'm still giving him absolutely loads of money. I have to pay him tribute from now on, and I'm giving him food. Those things will go away, they'll expire after 10 turns. But still, over those 10 turns, it's going to be quite a dear amount we're giving up. Our own food supply isn't even that plentiful anymore as a result. Hopefully it will be worth it, because we do need to move our forces away from the extreme north and extreme south of our territory and go back to the middle for that old familiar refrain of fighting Yuan Shu, and perhaps more importantly, Gong Shu, Yuan Shu's vassal, who is all along our border. So let's get to that. We still have plenty of border gore in the south to resolve, so this war is an opportunity for that. Interestingly, Huang Zhong comes over with an army in this area. So it turns out we don't need to go that far away from our southern extreme to defend against this move, at least, from Gong Shu. Nice of them to attack where our armies happen to be and where our unvaluable territories are as well. We've also got war with some other factions who are vassalized to Yuan Shu. And here's one of them, this Ji Shu guy. No idea who it is, some descendant of some other faction, I presume. And they are bringing some troops to attack the jade mine near the capital. Was about to just give it up, but actually looking at their force, it's not very good, and while we don't have many men, I know from experience that the map here is extremely confined. The enemy can't attack from many directions, making it ideal for an exploit siege defense. Not really going to focus very much on this one, since I didn't really do anything. Just stood here and the enemy ran at our towers. The way the settlement is set up, they have to attack from the north, and there are only 2 entrances. There are 3 entrances really, but 2 of them are right next to each other, with 4 towers defending them both, so it's going to be really hard for the enemy to get in. Plus I'm just running cavalry around the place just to make sure the AI is unfocused, and those cav do take out the enemy's archers as well. In the meantime though, my own archers and towers just eviscerate everything that comes close to our defences, and the enemy take huge losses. Not really much else to say about that. The towers just killed the enemies for us. Here the enemy faction leader is fleeing from battle amid the chaos, and that's going to be the end of that. The balance bar somehow still equal, but then it slams into our favour as the last 2 or 3 units chain route away, and that'll be that, although the battle goes on just long enough for one of the tower bots to kill the enemy faction leader, the very last guy to go down. Good stuff, a heroic victory. So yes, the power of towers, especially on maps that emphasize their strength, is still extreme. That faction will be getting a new name now, which is annoying. Didn't even know who they were to begin with. Now there's someone even more random. In the south, we've got some bad news though. Huang Zhong attacks that tea house that we fought so hard to take from the Duchy of Wu, and there's no actual settlement there, so we can't do any defensive fun, just have to give it to them. In response, I'm going to put an ambush just west, because again, you can see the terrain kind of forces the enemy to walk through my ambush zone if they want to go anywhere else, so it's a good spot to just wait for the enemy to give themselves a disadvantage. We're losing money again, even though we're actually losing territory, which will increase our income because of corruption in this case. It's because I've hired all these troops right here in the centre of our territory to just walk off into Gong Shu's presumably undefended commanderies and just be annoying. We're liberating, and I'm going to take any territories that are auto-resolvable. That first one I walked past wasn't, but there's a weaponsmith we'll take soon. Near the capital, Yuan Shu himself has shown his head. Looks like he's sneaking over, but some of my troops from the north are arriving as well. I wanted Yuan Shu to get closer, so I'm going to put an ambush outside the capital, see if his desire for the capital will cause him to come and get ambushed. Unfortunately, it didn't work, because he just stood there during his turn to wait for reinforcements to show up, who you can now see. But our own reinforcements also showed up. This is the map looking the other way, by the way. We're looking south, so that those mountains don't block our line of sight on the situation. But yes, Gong arrived, and while I could go in for an attack, I guess I had my heart set on an ambush at this point, because I'm going to put both of my armies in ambush stance and just see if we can get the enemy to walk into one of them at least. We do have night attack on both of those armies, so we don't need to do that to get an advantage, but for some reason I've just gone crazy for ambushes. I've also got a third army here. These are the guys from Wu Wei, and they're coming down to also attack Gong Shu in presumably undefended locations. My raiding force that is also doing that takes that weaponsmith, the weapon craftsman it's actually called, without a fight. So there we go, or with an auto-resolve fight I should say. Easy peasy, just being annoying. Now they might send an army to go and stop me, and I'll just run away if they do. It's going to be a nice distraction, and if they don't, then we've got some of their territory forever. Thank you very much. Bad news though down south. My ambush plan to take down Huangzhong is foiled because the ambush just didn't work. Plus, there's a second Gong Shu army spotted nearby. So this area is going to be harder to defend than I thought it was going to be. As for this battle, well, it's perfectly winnable. The enemy just have tons of G militia in there, so it's all the standard trash. But I'm actually going to withdraw from this one for, well, two reasons. The meta reason of I don't want to. It's probably not going to be very interesting to fight this battle. And a perhaps more strategic one based on the game's mechanics, in that if we kill these guys, they'll probably respawn and attack us again before we resecure the tea house, especially if I have to go back west to replenish before fighting their other army just behind it. So, altogether I just had no motivation to actually bother resisting this invasion, which is pretty much a bad idea because now they've gone past us, we won't be able to catch up. They're using march stance, and that is going to cause a little bit of havoc later on, not too much though. In the meantime, Gong also failed his ambush against one of these Yuan Shu armies. We've got an advantage, but I can't auto-resolve this because we do need to fight Yuan Shu right after, need to keep our men alive, so we'll do it manually. At least we're allowed to make it a night attack, even though it's kind of like the enemy are attacking us, and usually you can't use night attack for defensive situations. As for my battle plan, well, you know what I'm going to do here. But the enemy do react this time. They actually counter my rear attack with the horse archers. They turn their crossbows around and start firing, so we can't just stand there and kill the enemy like usual. But we can still use this proactivity of the enemy to our advantage. We can have our horse archers just come in and hang around, sniping at enemy officers to get the enemy's archers and crossbows attention, and at the same time rush forwards with the rest of our army. That way we're not taking shots while we're out of the enemy's range and can quickly set up to begin an archer exchange where we can hit the crossbows and the like. Although in this case I'm going to be focusing on those G militia because they're going to go right down. And the horse archer rear attack has drawn enough enemy attention to give us a decisive advantage. Tons of archers and cav just running off to effectively do nothing. The crossbows they still have at the front line are annoying. They're killing my heavy spearmen very quickly, so we're going to have to go for the early charge. But look at the enemy's melee line in general. It's just routing. They didn't get anywhere near us because our mass spam of yellow turban archers just cuts everything down, even the missile resistant guys like those sabers. And those that survive and get close now have to actually fight in the melee against all of my high level units, so even though some of them are still just the beginning of the game trash that I've never bothered to upgrade, they'll do okay and the heavy spears will be fine. I'm pretty slow here actually at deploying my cav. They're arriving far too late. Look at these exposed crossbows just shooting me. They should be dead already. Not that it really matters as usual. So yes, the enemy army was already in chaos pretty much before we hit them, and now they're just dead. A few of their units come back from chasing my horse archers like these sabers. They just get slammed with arrows, and we already have the field under our control. So it's just a case of waiting for the chain rout to happen. It eventually does, and there we go, a decisive victory. So not an ambush, but a generic field battle that's a night battle as well. Gives you a pretty hefty advantage anyway, so it doesn't matter. We captured all of their commanders. I let the first one go because she was only level 1 and having the enemy have low level commanders is theoretically good for us. Although as usual it doesn't matter that much because we are going to be killing them all soon anyway. I executed the other 2 as well, in one case to get a weapon and in the other case because level 2 is just too strong for my enemies. Gonna ransom the troops back to them because we need the money right now, and as I said, we're just going to counter-attack in our turn and auto-resolve the remnants of the enemy army, so it doesn't matter if the ransoming gives them extra troops or what have you. There we go, that's one of Yuan Shu's 2 armies dead. Not the main one though, we want to take the one out that has Yuan Shu in it. Unfortunately I can't reach them this turn, so we'll just go and stand near them. But again, I'm still really heavy on this ambush plan because I do this, I put my second army in an ambush just in front of Gong thinking if Yuan Shu tries to go for a showdown, we'll cheekily ambush him and Gong will reinforce, so that will be a nice situation. Also going to send out this army deep in Gong Shu's territory to continue being annoying. There's no road here, so it takes us ages to move, but I guess we'll just do it slowly but surely. Now check this out. I'm losing money, but I lower the tax rate here. What is going on with that, you might ask? Well, the reason is that public order has finally become an issue in this campaign. I've been completely ignoring it, and ignoring all of the buildings actually up until this point. But actually we are in trouble, and that's because you get this public order penalty from population. I'll explain briefly how it works because it's kind of interesting actually. Your population goes up by a set amount every turn. I think in our case it's 3,000 people per commandery per turn. And it's just based on technologies, it doesn't go up on its own, which is why the first time I talked about population in this series I was confused at how I had 30,000 people and it wasn't going up or down. It's because if you don't have the techs or certain population giving buildings, you don't actually get any more population. But because I do have the techs, I've been gaining population for the whole campaign, and we're getting to the point where a lot of commanderies have the max population you're allowed, and that gives you a big public order debuff. Now we can't kill our own people, I don't think there's any way to get rid of them, so now we just have this public order problem that's growing and growing, and certain places are at the point where they're going to rebel because they don't have public order buildings to counteract the population debuff. So I'm going to need loads of money in order to sort that out basically and get the buildings we need. Lowering the tax rate obviously does not help with that, it's just prolonging the rebellion in certain places, so I can try and win these wars, then I can disband troops in order to get more money and quickly rush through the construction of the public order buildings to avoid disaster. That's the overall plan. As for my military plan, you can see I'm setting up another ambush down in the south. I'm going to completely ignore the Huanzhong army and try to just ambush the other one. This causes Huanzhong to move to the south into our undefended areas. Looks like he's going to attack stuff and we're just going to let him do it. Then Yuan Shu really puts his foot in it. He actually gets ambushed by my crazy plan of setting up the ambush right in front of my unambushed field army. So both armies on our side will attack Yuan Shu at once in an ambush, and he's just really screwed. So we'll just quickly auto-resolve that one, and that's going to be the end of him, although not quite actually, because he of course survives this auto-resolve. His army's a little bit alive, but not very. However, because it's now been defeated, it just ends up sitting around for the rest of its turn, and we can immediately attack at the start of our turn with our main force and Gong, and it's just a slaughter of the remnants, so we auto-resolve that as well, and all of a sudden Yuan Shu's in trouble. He does have the magic barrier, so he actually doesn't die immediately. However, turns out we captured him, and I guess the execution thing does ignore the magic barrier effect where you can't die. So we are going to have the chance to kill him, and don't know what I'm waiting for here, considering not doing it apparently, but that would be a terrible idea. Yuan Shu has caused us so much trouble in this campaign with his constant declarations of war and his mysterious network of vassals. But finally he is dead, so this is potentially a time for change now. We might be able to start deconstructing the Duchy of Zhong's hold on central China, which will help us out a lot. Plus, this trade port right here can once again be ours. We'll just attack with both armies at the same time for an easy auto-resolve. At this stage we're finally restoring our momentum, our border's much shorter, and while we don't have much money, we are in a much better strategic situation where we can actually fight our enemies and not just get peace without ever defeating them. We can go forwards to try and permanently destroy our foes, which will actually mean we're going to make some progress in the game, incredibly, in the next part of this abridged campaign.